Thanksgiving is supposed to be about family, gratitude, and making people feel loved. At least that's what everybody says, right? Big dinners, warm conversations, kids laughing in the background, grandparents spoiling the grandkids. The kind of memories people post online pretending every family actually functions that way. But sometimes, holidays don't expose love. They expose favoritism. And I learned that lesson in the most painful way possible when my parents handed gifts to every grandchild in the room, except mine. Now trust me, I can handle disrespect toward me. Life teaches you how to survive that eventually. But watching your child sit there confused while everyone around them opens presents, that hits differently. And what happened after that moment changed my relationship with my family forever. But honestly, it also taught me one of the biggest lessons about self-respect, emotional discipline, and why protecting your peace matters more than protecting appearances. Now, before I tell you what happened at Thanksgiving dinner, you need to understand the history behind all this. See, my relationship with my parents had always been complicated, not explosive, not dramatic all the time. Actually, in some ways, that made it worse, because favoritism hidden under politeness creates a very specific kind of emotional exhaustion. Growing up, my younger brother was always the center of attention, the successful athlete, the outgoing one, the one my parents proudly talked about nonstop. And me? I was the difficult child simply because I questioned things. I was independent early, more quiet, more emotionally observant, and families uncomfortable with honesty usually don't know what to do with people like that. Now, when I became a parent, I genuinely believed things would improve. I thought becoming grandparents would soften them emotionally. And for a while, it seemed like maybe I was right. At least on the surface. But over time, subtle differences started becoming impossible to ignore. They babysat my brother's kids constantly, bought them expensive gifts randomly, posted pictures online calling them our whole world. Meanwhile, my daughter got polite conversations and occasional forgotten birthdays. Now let me explain something important. Kids notice everything, far more than adults realize. Especially emotional differences. And honestly, watching my daughter slowly recognize she was treated differently hurt more than anything they ever did directly to me. That's one reason health and fitness became so important in my life over the years, not just physically. Mentally, because when family dynamics drain you emotionally, routines become survival. The gym became the place where I rebuilt confidence quietly, where discipline reminded me I wasn't powerless, where progress depended on consistency instead of approval. And honestly, those lessons changed how I handled family conflict completely. Because fitness teaches emotional control. You learn how to stay steady under discomfort, how to breathe through pressure instead of reacting impulsively. And trust me, that skill mattered during this Thanksgiving. Now the holiday dinner itself started normally enough. Big house full of relatives, food everywhere, football playing loudly in the background, kids running through the living room, everybody pretending things were perfectly normal. And honestly, I already felt tension walking in. You know how sometimes your instincts warn you before your brain catches up? That's how it felt. But I ignored it for my daughter's sake, because parents do that constantly. We tolerate uncomfortable situations trying to preserve normal experiences for our kids. Now, after dinner, my mother suddenly announced it was gift time. Apparently, she and my father had decided to surprise the grandkids early this year. Immediately, all the kids got excited. Even my daughter. And watching her excitement honestly breaks my heart now when I think about it, because she genuinely believed she belonged equally in that room. Now my parents started handing out boxes one by one. New tablets, expensive toys, gift cards, huge reactions from everybody. Laughter, pictures, excitement everywhere. And slowly, I realized something horrifying. They skipped my daughter completely. At first, I genuinely thought maybe they forgot accidentally. But then, the gifts stopped. Everybody moved on, and my little girl just sat there quietly, trying to understand what happened. Now let me tell you something painful. Children try very hard not to embarrass adults they love. So instead of crying or complaining, she smiled awkwardly and whispered to me, "Maybe mine's somewhere else." That sentence nearly destroyed me emotionally, because in that moment I realized she was already trying to make excuses for people who hurt her, the same way I spent years doing. And suddenly I saw the cycle repeating itself. Now honestly, rage hit me immediately. Real rage. Not because of presents, because of humiliation. Because excluding a child publicly requires a level of emotional cruelty I still struggle understanding. And everybody noticed it. The awkward silence spreading around the room told me this wasn't accidental. Relatives avoided eye contact. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked relieved it wasn't their child being excluded. That's another thing family gatherings teach you sometimes. Silence often protects unhealthy behavior. Now my mother finally looked at me and said casually, "Oh, we figured your daughter already has enough." Enough. That was the explanation. Meanwhile, the other grandchildren sat surrounded by expensive gifts. And honestly, years earlier, I probably would have exploded emotionally right there. But discipline changes your reactions. That's something fitness taught me repeatedly. When emotions spike, your ability to stay grounded becomes power. So instead of screaming, I stayed calm. And weirdly enough, calmness made the entire room more uncomfortable. Because emotional people expect emotional reactions, calm truth is harder to dismiss. I looked at my daughter first, and in that moment, I realized something clearly. This situation was no longer about my parents. It was about what my daughter would learn from watching me respond. Would she learn to tolerate disrespect quietly? Would she learn to beg for equal treatment? Or would she learn self-respect? That moment mattered deeply. So I stood up calmly and reached into my bag. Now here's the part nobody expected. See, weeks earlier, I had already started noticing the favoritism becoming more obvious, and honestly, something inside me told me this Thanksgiving might expose things completely. So I prepared something beforehand. Not revenge, a lesson. I pulled out a wrapped box and handed it directly to my daughter. The room went quiet immediately. She looked confused at first, then excited, and I told her, "This gift is from the person who will always make sure you feel valued." She opened it slowly. Inside was a scrapbook. But not an ordinary scrapbook. Every page was filled with pictures of our adventures together over the years. Camping trips, gym selfies, birthday mornings, movie nights, little handwritten notes reminding her of moments we shared. And on the final page, I had written something simple. You never need expensive gifts to prove your worth. You already matter exactly as you are. Now I'm telling you right now, the entire room changed after that. Because suddenly this wasn't about presents anymore. It became about something deeper. Love, attention, emotional presence, the things money can't fake. And my daughter started crying quietly while hugging that scrapbook against her chest. Not sad tears. The kind of emotional release that happens when someone feels truly seen. And honestly, watching that moment healed something inside me too. Because for the first time, I stopped trying to win approval from people emotionally incapable of giving it fairly. That realization felt freeing. Now here's where things became even more uncomfortable for my parents. My niece, my brother's oldest daughter, suddenly looked at my mother and asked, "Why didn't you get her anything?" Silence. Complete silence. Because children accidentally expose truths adults spend years avoiding. And nobody had an answer that sounded reasonable out loud, not one. Now, afterward, tensions exploded privately, of course. My brother accused me of making things dramatic. My mother insisted I embarrassed her intentionally. And honestly, that reaction taught me something important. People often become angry when boundaries expose behavior they wanted normalized quietly. But here's the truth. Protecting your child emotionally will always matter more than protecting family appearances. Always. And honestly, health and fitness helped me understand that on a deeper level over time. Because discipline builds self-worth gradually. Every workout teaches consistency. Every healthy choice reinforces self-respect. Every difficult session teaches you not to abandon yourself when discomfort appears. And eventually, that mindset spreads into relationships too. You stop tolerating emotional environments that damage your peace constantly. You stop shrinking yourself to keep toxic people comfortable. You start protecting your energy intentionally. That Thanksgiving changed everything for me. Not dramatically overnight, but permanently. After that day, I stopped chasing equal treatment from people committed to favoritism. I stopped forcing relationships that drained my daughter emotionally. And honestly, peace entered our lives afterward in ways I didn't expect. Because distance from unhealthy dynamics creates clarity. Now looking back, I realize my daughter probably won't remember every expensive gift other kids received that year, but she will remember the scrapbook. She'll remember feeling chosen intentionally. Loved intentionally, protected intentionally. And honestly, that matters infinitely more. Because children don't just remember what people buy them, they remember how people made them feel about themselves. So if you're listening right now while dealing with toxic family dynamics, favoritism, or emotional exclusion, hear me carefully. Do not teach your children to tolerate disrespect just to keep family peace. Teach them self-worth. Teach them boundaries. Teach them that love should never feel conditional. And most importantly, teach them through your actions. Because sometimes the most powerful gift you can give your child is showing them they never have to beg for love where it should have been given freely in the first place.